What's happening? What's going on? Part of my presence YouTube channel. How you living? How you handling the coronavirus emergency? Are you without supplies? Were you caught off guard? Are you flat-footed in this whole situation? Or have you been preparing for a long time? Do you have your guns? Do you have your ammo? Do you have your beef jerky, non-perishable goods, gallons of water? Do you have a bunker to hide all your gold? Are you ready for the apocalypse? Let me know. Do you have everything that you need? Do you have Alex Jones synced up on your YouTube, ready to listen? Do you have your Joe Rogan podcast linked up? Do you have your blockers so you don't get any 5G radiation from the airwaves? Are you ready to find out if the world is actually round or flat? Let me know how everyone is living during the final days of Earth. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I want to discuss something that I find really tragic. And you let me know if you agree with this, okay? Amidst the whole scandal, amidst the whole crisis with coronavirus, there was a report that came out, okay? So this came out in between Italy, death toll rising 20% in one day. This came in between the UK having 10,000 people with coronavirus. There was a blurb that came out saying that Zion Williamson, or Williams, has agreed or pledged to help employees of Smoothie King. Now, at first I thought, okay, maybe it's one of the restaurants or yogurt places that he frequents. He wants to help them out. I didn't realize that they actually play in the Smoothie King arena or center. That's a weird name for a stadium. But anyways, here's the part that was interesting about this. Zion says that his mother always set a good example to be respectful for others and to be grateful for what we have. This man is 19 years old. Okay? 19 years old, and he plans to cover the salaries of all the employees that work in the Smoothie King Center. So it's not people that work at Smoothie King as far as the yogurts, whatever else they sell, but it also means concession stand peoples, ushers, people at the ticket booth, people at will call, security. Is that what he's saying? He's paying for all of their salaries? Now this guy's a rookie. And he's a fortunate rookie because he almost lost his career not too long ago when he got that injury, being as heavy as he is. He should count his blessings. And if you ask me, I don't think he is in the position, or he should put himself in the position to donate his money in his first season ever that hasn't even finished yet, he might not even get to finish the season, for him to make that type of promise. Everybody knows athletes have a poor track record of keeping their money. They make a lot of poor financial decisions. You know, they sign a contract, they buy a house, $1 million house, not for just themselves, for their mother. They buy cars for their brother. They buy expensive cars worth 6 figures. And this is all within the first week of signing their contract. Not even knowing if they're going to play 2 games, because they could get injured on the first game. They could get injured, in Zion's case, before the season even starts. And what a lot of people don't realize is that sports athletes, I don't know for all, maybe baseball is different because baseball has a better union. They're the best union in sports. But in basketball, players are given paychecks. They are employees. They get paid, if I'm not mistaken, bi-weekly or per game. They get paid. So they're on a stipend, so to speak. They don't get that $1 million, $10 million contract all at once. It's split up. And whenever there's a strike or a lockout, they don't get paid at all. And this is why a lot of times athletes vote and make agreements to the CBA for different contract stipulations that are really not in their best interest, because they were pushed to the brink where they could no longer afford the luxuries that they've been paying for when they were getting consistent paychecks. So for Zion Williamson to offer his money, first I want to applaud him, because that is a great gesture, and it does well for his image and his brand. But at the same time, this is not a good move. This is not a good move at all. Not for a guy who almost lost his career based on injuries. Not for a guy who people are predicting won't have a long career. To put himself under this financial burden is crazy. The next thing I want to address is very simple. Okay, when I found out about this story, I was reading the comments in the comment section of the story, and people were saying that, oh, it's such a class act. I wish more players would do this. It's good to see that these players who are making millions are giving back to the small guy. I don't think people realize how misinformed they are. And I also don't think people understand that although athletes are paid as much as they are employees, okay? They are workers. They have to follow rules. They have to follow the dress code. They have to do as they're told. They could get fines for speaking out of line and moving out of turn. They could lose a lot of money by endorsing the wrong thing, or tweeting the wrong tweet, or swearing. They are not these all-powerful beings that people think that they are. Yes, they are the face of the organization, and as a result, they're seen as millionaires and spoiled athletes who don't give a damn about the small guy. But let me explain something to you. They are high-paid employees, and what you have to realize, and a lot of people do, but unfortunately a lot of people don't as well, because they're high-paid employees. They have a boss. Okay, they have a boss. And because they are given contracts that pay them millions of dollars, and there's X amount of players on a team that might make multi-millions. There might be 4 or 5 players with max contracts making millions. Do people understand that in order for those players on one team to get paid, someone has to have the money in order to pay them? Someone has to have the revenue to cover these expenses. This is essentially payroll. Let's break it down to something on a lower scale that maybe people can understand. If let's say your boss, let's say you work at retail, okay, and you're a regular cashier. You have your supervisor, customer service coordinator, supervisor, then you have your assistant manager, then you have your store manager, okay? But then you also have a district manager. Now you might think a district manager is this all seeing being, the guy who runs everything, and he may run things within that particular district, but he himself has a boss. And that boss writes his check. And that boss could get him fired. And that boss tells him what salary or what take-home pay he's going to have. And this is the exact same thing with the NBA. And you tell me, imagine if that district manager said, I'm going to cover all of the employees' salary. If the business shuts down, I'm going to cover all the employees' salary. Let's break it down a step further. What if you're at, let's say you're at McDonald's, and your boy who makes the fries, you know, he might be making maybe 10 cents, $1 more than you, whatever the case may be, and you're the one who's still sweeping the floors, cleaning the washrooms, and you know the McDonald's catches on fire and burns down, or you know there's a certain fire and has to be shut down for renovations, and your homie, the guy who makes the fries, says to the rest of the staff, hey, don't worry about it, I'm going to cover all you guys' salaries. I got you, don't worry. He'd be looking at him like, sit your ass down. Who do you think you are? You're not in a position to pay for all of us. I don't care if you make $1 more than me. You don't have the money. And it's not your responsibility to cover us, because you are not the owner of the restaurant. It should be the franchise owner or whoever runs McDonald's. They're the ones who should be making that decision. And it won't even come from their pockets. It's going to come from the corporation's coffers. Okay? So let's bring it back to the NBA and Zion Williamson, okay? Because I'm gonna read this article. This article is from BBC Sports. Now, my apologies. I could have gotten something from ESPN, but nevertheless, in this article, it talks about Zion ready to cover employees' expenses or the salaries. Then it talks about Giannis, the Greek freak. He pledged to pay $100,000 to workers of the Milwaukee Bucks Fiserv Forum. He's 25 years old. He posts on social media, it's bigger than basketball. During this tough time, I want to help the people that make my life, my family's lives, and my teammates' lives easier. Why is that your responsibility, Giannis? You're an employee. Who should be covering for the employees' expenses in these trying times when they can't work because they're forced to stay home and be in isolation? It should be the owner. Don't all of these teams have owners? A lot of times it's only one owner raking in the billions of dollars that these sporting organizations, these sporting teams make hand over fist year after year. If you think you're making a lot of money because they gave you a contract, what do you think they're making off of you? By them selling your jerseys with your name on it, by them selling your likeness, by them selling tickets to come see you. How much do you think they make? They make a lot more than you, and it's the owner's responsibility. That's why they are called owners. You own a home, that property is your responsibility. So on and so forth. You understand my point here. So shame on the owners for allowing the players to take this burden on by themselves. Now, we'll give props to Mark Cuban from the Dallas Mavericks because he stepped out in front early and said, I'm going to make it happen where I'm covering the salaries of all my employees, because to have the NBA season shut down and be suspended indefinitely, it takes a toll on them, a financial toll. So yes, I can appreciate that. That's how it should be. And if you notice, I don't think any of the Dallas Maverick players stepped up and said, I'm going to give money to my coworkers. because it's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that in your right mind. Ask yourself, each and every one of you, even if you won the lottery and you're just working for fun, you would never donate your money to a coworker. It's not your responsibility. It's the owner. It's the corporation. It's the business to make sure that their employees are happy, safe, well taken care of, are able to come back to work or come back to and from work in one piece. That's their job. So shame on them. And I hope this trend doesn't continue where more and more players step up and do things. I don't think that should happen. Now, can players use their celebrity status and their face to do other things? Absolutely. And they should, when the time is right, because you don't want any more autographs sent in the mail blowing up with coronavirus, like that unfortunate kid who contracted the virus from an autograph from Rudy Gobert, this dumbass. Okay, but I don't think he should be penalized to a point where he has to now give away $500,000 to make amends. That's not right, because you have to ask yourself, where did he get it from? How did he catch it? How much is that person paying? Which coworker salaries are they covering? So if you wonder why NBA players go bankrupt, or professional athletes in general go bankrupt quickly after they retire, it's because of acts like these. Me personally, no matter how much money I have, I wouldn't have done this. It's not because I'm heartless. It's because it's not my place to do this. Because no matter how much money I make, it's given to me as a form of a check with someone else's name authorizing that payment to me, which means I'm an employee. I have no say here. I don't run shit. I participate like everybody else. I have to follow rules like everybody else. I gotta wear certain clothing like everybody else. I get fined, I get disciplined, I get suspended, I get fired like every other coworker. They don't fire NBA owners. What's the guy's name on the Knicks? James Dolan. Look how poorly that organization is run. Are they firing him? He keeps his job. Why? Because he's the owner. So I decided to do some more research, and I found out about the owner of the New Orleans Pelicans, the principal owner, majority owner. Her name is Gail Benson. Okay, now what's interesting about Gail Benson is that she's not only the owner of the NBA team, the Pelicans, she's also an owner of an NFL team. You guessed it, the New Orleans Saints. So here you have a owner of two major sports teams, sporting organizations. Okay, now to be fair to her, there was an article that came out recently where it was noted that she is donating $1 million, and it does say it was donated from her personally. Okay, but here's the catch. $1 million was established to the Gail Benson Community Assistance Fund in response to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. Okay, now if you are up to speed on philanthropists, and they're donating not directly to people who need it, but donating to a fund which they own, if you dig deeper into those things, you start to realize that a lot of times the money goes to the fund, but whoever's in charge of the fund never releases money to the people who need it. Now, in this article where it talks about her donation, okay, it does say that They've partnered with the Greater New Orleans Foundation, GNOF, and they will assist in the contributions and the distributions of the money. Okay, so it doesn't really say how it's going to distribute the money. It doesn't say if it's going to be covered as far as people's salaries. Okay, and on top of that, it doesn't really state whether or not these employees are covered fully. Okay, now to give some perspective on what this $1 million charity is. Okay, if we compare it to Zion, which he pretty much wrote a blank check, because according to his donation, he's covering the arenas, or the salary of the arena's workers for 1 month. Okay, he doesn't really give a number. It's whatever their salary is for all the workers in the arena for 1 month. Okay, now I don't think it comes up to $1 million, but then again, Zion is not a owner of 2 professional sports teams. Okay, now speaking of these teams, it's very important to understand where this money is coming from and how much the disparity is between the employees, Zion Williamson as a star rookie, and Gail Benson, a no-name owner of 2 sports teams. Okay, now if you look at Forbes, the New Orleans Saints, okay, as a sporting organization, NFL teams, now we all know NFL teams make a lot of money, but in 2018, their revenue, the New Orleans Saints, was $441 million in 2018 alone. Okay, she's owned them with her husband since 1985, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and she owns it outright because her husband died recently. Okay, but again, 2018, the recorded revenue, $441 million in revenue. The New Orleans Saints are valued, as far as the team in total, they're valued at $2.275 billion. Okay, that's just one team. Now let's go to the Pelicans. Okay, 2018, they recorded a revenue of $224 million. The team is valued at $1.35 billion. Okay, so here you have an owner, the person who's responsible for all of their employees, making this amount of money, again, from 2 sports teams. And she's contributing $1 million of her personal money to a fund in her name, which she has total control over, which may or may not go to the people who are in need of it. Meanwhile, you have these NBA players giving out $500,000, giving out $100,000, giving out a blank check. You tell me if that makes any sense. You tell me if that's correct. You tell me why the burden is on these athletes. Yeah, they have the name and the prestige, but they don't have the money. Okay, the money's not an equivalent compared to these owners who make hand over fist, that no one ever holds accountable because no one knows who they are. Did you know that Gail Benson owned 2 teams? I didn't know that. Okay, so just want to give you some information on how wrong this really is. To add injury to insult, a story came out today where the owners of the Philadelphia 76ers, the NBA team, and apparently this organization also owns the New Jersey Devils. How does that work? I don't know. It's interesting because it's 2 different cities, but this is the Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment organization that owns both these teams. There was a news story that came out today where they were planning on reducing the salaries of their workers. So this is any employee who makes $50,000 or more. They were going to issue a an instruction where they're going to reduce people's salaries by 20%, okay, and force them to only work 4 days a week. So they have to take a pay cut, and if you didn't take a pay cut, then it will result into some other issues, okay? Probably if you don't take a pay cut, because they can't force you because they're under a contract, so they can only suggest taking a pay cut. But I'm pretty sure that if the people decided they're not going to take a pay cut, they're not going to be given another contract extension for the next year, okay? So you tell me this, can you imagine? You have not even an individual, you have a corporation that owns these two teams. It hasn't even been 2 weeks yet, maybe 3 weeks since the NBA decided to shut down or suspend their season. And you have these organizations already cutting the paychecks of the little guys. Tell me that makes any sense. The Philadelphia 76ers, their team is valued at $2 billion. And their revenue last year, 2018 revenue was $300 million. And this is what they're doing. Anyways, I think I made my point. I rest my case. Zion Williamson, I hope you lose weight. I hope you have a long NBA career. I hope you get a long-standing contract and you make a lot of money. Because if you don't, if you get injured again, we have to miss the whole season. If you don't get another contract this size again because you're a liability, you're going to remember this day and you're going to say to yourself, why did I take on an owner's burden and pay for my coworkers? Part of my presence YouTube channel. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree? Disagree? Like, comment, subscribe.